Hello, my friends. It's Tanya with Tinkerin' in Ink with Tanya. Today we are doing another blog hop with the Crafty Friends, and this time we are using honeybee stamps. That made me do a bit of a limited products, limited supplies challenge because I really have just a limited amount of honeybee stamp stuff. Now, what I do have, I use a ton. So I have two sentiment sets. One coffee themed, one is egg themed. Think Easter and peeps and chickens and that kind of thing. Not quite the right season, and I couldn't make the flames work with that. I've got this wonderful flames stencil that I've already used a few times. And I also have a few die sets. I have the dies that coordinate with the coffee sentiments. And I have the A7 double stitched frames and the A7 scalloped frames. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I use those on almost every single A7 or 5x7 card that I make. I also have the coffee cup dies, and I have made a ton of those coffee cup cards. It creates a 4¼ by 5½ inch sized coffee cup shaped card, and I have made a gazillion of these as gift card holders. So this time I thought I would go with a coffee theme and use the flames for the images. And I have been in kind of a rainbow blend mood lately. So I did one cup in the orange to red, and this one is kind of an aqua green to teal and blue blend. And I'm just starting with the lighter color at the top and then just adding as I go. For the oranges and yellows and reds, I used wild honey, ripe persimmon. Oh gosh, what was the other one? Candied apple. Oh, and spiced marmalade. Not in that order. This one is cracked pistachio, peacock feathers, salty ocean, and blueprint sketch. That's what it was. I like how this flame stencil, when I was doing it in this fashion, I ended up with a little bit of white or lighter colors between the layers, which is kind of cool. I will say I did spray some pixie spray on the back of this stencil before I started, and it did not stick. I don't know if I need to clean the stencil again before I use the pixie spray again or not. Normally the pixie spray doesn't give me any problems, so I'm thinking it's user error. See how some of those have a little bit of almost white in the tips? I love that. So here I'm using some pearlized water. That's just perfect pearls in the pearl color mixed in some water in a spray bottle. I keep that on my desk all the time. It adds a subtle shimmer, and since I use distress oxides, they do react with the water and create a nice, I just love the texture that adds to the blending. I'm using coaster blanks and some Aleene's Tacky glue. I have actually watered this down a little bit. I just took an eyedropper with some water that I had actually boiled recently. People talk about mold or contaminant in they're worried about it when you add it to your products. Well, I thought, I would try using some water that had been very recently boiled, since I drink tea about a bazillion times a day. So it's kind of funny that I'm making coffee cards right now because I don't drink coffee. I do drink tea in this kind of cup all the time. But I don't know that many tea drinkers where I live, although that could be increasing. I really should make some tea-themed cards. I know several people who don't live where I live. So I am figuring out what I want to use. I have the Life Happens, Coffee Helps sentiment here. I also have a Be Strong and a Be Bold that I've picked for each of those each of those coffee cups. I started talking about the coffee cup card die. I did use that die, but I'm only using half of the card because I'm using this as a element on a 5x7 card instead of using it as a coffee cup shaped card. This is, again, also Aleene's tacky glue, the original, that I watered down and put in the Simon Says stamp craft tacky glue bottle, which has this really fine tip. So the watered down tacky glue works beautifully. The Simon Says stamp craft tacky glue is wonderful. I love it. My asthma does not. So I was looking for an alternative, and I love the control of that tip. So I'd actually taken the glue out of that bottle. There wasn't much left of it because, let me tell you, even though it makes me cough like crazy, I kept using it until there was only maybe an inch left in the bottom of that bottle. So I rinsed that out and put in some some tacky glue from Aleene's. That doesn't bother my asthma. And I've been using that. And I love the little tiny tip that allows me to control the glue so I don't have to tap off the excess on a piece of paper before I put it down. And now I am taking a Trinity Stamps Slimline card banner die. And I am stamping the sentiment in Versamark ink. Now I'm just using cheap black Hobby Lobby paper here. I am not buying any more Hobby Lobby stuff. You can see lots of reasons why we should and shouldn't support that company elsewhere. I'm not going to go into that. However, the paper does not take and emboss very well. You're going to see my splotchy white embossing. I thought maybe my ink pad was dry, so I'm going to try to improve that by stamping it several times in my Misty. It's a little bit challenging on this little tiny banner, but I'm going to use a piece of acetate to help line up the stamps, and we'll just stamp them all at once. And I think, yeah, I still didn't get that lined up completely the way I wanted it. So I load this into the Misty and use a piece of acetate to line that up. And now I'm going to use my Misty to stamp these sentiments 3 times with the Versamark ink before I sprinkle on the powder again. I thought maybe my ink pad was a little dry because I do a lot of heat embossing, a ton. In fact, I've gone through almost an entire jar of the Hero Arts White Satin Pearl embossing powder, which is one of my most commonly used embossing powders. The Alabaster White from Brutus Monroe is another one I use a ton of. And you're going to see that it doesn't make much difference. This paper doesn't want to take the embossing powder very well. So now I'm going to do some embossing on the card or coffee cups themselves. This one's going to say Be Strong. I'm going to take the Versafine Onyx Black ink pad and ink it up. There's my little sock again. Stamping that sentiment a couple of times with the Versafine Onyx Black. And I'm going to use some Brutus Monroe Icicle embossing powder this time. I love that embossing powder. It creates this raised, clear, shiny, perfect embossing almost every single time. The only time I don't get results, is good results, is if I use a really cheap paper. And I have been using Neenah Solar White 80 pound and 110 pound paper for a while, but I recently switched to a paper that was recommended by Mary Polanco because it is way less expensive. Like the Neenah Solar White is about 20 cents a sheet for the 110 pound, and this stuff is like 5 or 7 cents a pound, or excuse me, not a pound, a page, a sheet. It's about, depends on which weight you use. If you use the 100 pound weight, then it's 7 cents per sheet, and it performs pretty much exactly the same, and is much whiter actually. Oh my gosh, I have to keep pausing the recording because my computer fan keeps kicking in. I'm so sorry. Yes, the Neenah Solar White is a more expensive, and it is a good paper, but this stuff is just as good, and cheaper is better, I'm saying. Anyway, so moving on, back to the paper, or I mean the card. So I took a 5x7, 5.25 by 8.5 actually, piece of paper, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do for the background. I really wanted to white satin pearl emboss some images on the background, to cut out a panel to put behind the coffee cup, but I didn't really have a good image. I mean, I suppose I could have done the coffee beans, a ton of coffee beans, but I decided to do a rainbow of flames. That's an interesting concept. And then, what am I doing? Oh, hey, there's the beans. I'm going to do a rainbow of beans on the inside of the card. This is a 10 by 7 piece of the cardstock that is scored at 5 inches. And I am trying to decide which colors to use here. I settle on wild honey, candied apple, cracked pistachio, and salty ocean. And I'm going to go ahead and ink those up all over the place. I start with the red and the bigger coffee bean, and I'm in my head trying to figure out where to place these in the rainbow order, but I just start doing some random stuff. Figuring there's going to be 3 repeats of that pattern on this page. So I take the large stamp and I stamp each color in a repeat of 3 across the side of the inside of the card. Then I take the smaller coffee bean and I do pretty much the same thing, trying to fill in a little more on the border. I think I went a little crazy on this. What do you think? Would you have gone to all the effort of putting all of those little coffee beans in there? Now that I'm looking at it, it kind of looks like rainbow leopard spots too. Ooh, coffee beans as leopard spots. That's another use to use, or way to use these. Then I decided I needed some actually coffee bean colored coffee beans in here. So I grabbed a couple of browns. I believe that's frayed burlap and ground espresso. Very appropriate, right? And added those. I did a whole bunch of those too, and I start to overlap them a little bit. They kind of look like M&Ms. Maybe I'm just hungry. How can that be? I just ate a big grilled dinner. I don't know, I guess I'm hungry all the time. How about you guys? Does that make you think of M&Ms? And then the trouble. I thought I'd be able to fit both of these coffee cups on the front of this card. Guess again, lady, they only fit one. This card only fits one. more of the coaster blanks on the back for my dimension. I just cut those up to fit and glued them on. There is my rainbow of flames. I do like to put the layers, I like to put them underneath the something heavy, like the Misty or my giant block, to give it a little chance to form a bond with the different paper layers, nice and flat. I've got a drawer that I have all of these little scraps from all of the die cutting and trimming that I've done, so I can just reach into that drawer and grab whatever I need to put on the back of things. So I decided to go with the yellow to red coffee cup with the Be Bold, and I'm using a coaster blank there to create even pressure, since there is a extra layer of coaster under the lid of the coffee. And that pretty much wraps up the card. I hope you like it. I have a whole extra coffee cup item, image, to use on another stamp. Excuse me, not on another card. I hope you like this. I hope you go check out Honeybee Stamps. Part of the promotion with their blog hop is for the 2 days, the day of and the day after our blog hop. There is a 20% coupon for people who make a purchase through one of our Crafty team members. Visit my blog, check it out, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.